Jobber. Right, we now come to business questions. I call the Shanley of the House, Lucy Powell.
If the Leader will give us the forthcoming business.
Leader.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 11th of March will include, on Monday the 11th of March, continuation of the budget debate. On Tuesday the 12th of March, conclusion of the budget debate. On Wednesday the 13th of March, consideration of an allocation of time motion, followed by all stages of the National Insurance Contribution Reduction in Rates No. 2 Bill. Thursday the 14th of March, Estimates Day. There will be debates on estimates relating to the Department for Education, insofar as it relates to special educational needs and disabilities provision, and the Home Office, insofar as it relates to asylum and migration. At 5 p.m, the House will be asked to agree all outstanding estimates. Friday the 15th of March, private members' bills. The provisional business for the week commencing the 18th of March includes proceedings on the Supply and Appropriation Anticipation and Adjustments Bill, followed by consideration of Lord's amendments to the Safety of Rwanda Asylum and Immigration Bill. Tuesday the 19th of March, remaining stages of the Trade Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership Bill, Lords. Further business will be announced in the usual way.
Lucy Powell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This week, the Science Secretary made a grovelling apology and retracted baseless allegations she made against a member of her own advisory body on her own personal Twitter account, based on a dodgy dossier produced by a Conservative think tank. Remarkably, the damages paid out came from taxpayers' money from her department. This is a new low for ministerial standards. So perhaps the Leader can clarify a few things. Was the £15,000 paid in damages the total cost borne by the Science Department? Apparently, she was given appropriate advice, but did she follow that advice, or were her accusations against the advice she received? Because if so, then surely she should personally pay the costs. Will the Leader urgently ensure the Secretary of State is accountable to Parliament? They can't have it both ways. If the money was paid by taxpayers because it related to her ministerial responsibilities, then she must come to Parliament as a minister and account for that. Other ministers were told their own Twitter accounts were a matter for them personally. Does the Science Secretary still have the confidence of the Leader? Mr Speaker, all we got from yesterday's budget was old news, briefed and leaked to the papers before it was given to Parliament. The next time the Leader cries crocodile tears for the rights of this place, she could reflect on their failure to stand by parliamentary convention and deliver budgets here first. Although I'm sure the Leader was relieved that her marginal constituency didn't get a name check, because her colleagues were all complaining this was the kiss of death. But on the substance, the verdict is now in. The OBR forecasts tax receipts as a proportion of GDP are set to rise to their highest level since the Second World War. The Resolution Foundation says the big picture has not changed. Taxes are heading up, and this will be the first Parliament in modern history in which living standards fall lower than at the end than they were at the start. The Institute for Fiscal Studies agrees households are worse off since the last election. And no sooner had the Chancellor sat down than the Energy Minister criticised a key plank of the energy plans on Twitter. The public's verdict is also in. A Snap poll revealed 3 in 5 voters think the government's plan is not working. The Sky News panel of 2019 Tory voters couldn't be more damning. Absolutely farcical, said one. They've got no plan, said another, who thought the budget was a great vote loser. A waste of time, and it's time for them to go, said a third. And that's because, on the big issues, this budget changes nothing. On taxes, for every 5p the government is giving, they are taking 10p in tax rises. Millions more middle-income families are paying more and more tax on their earnings, dragged into higher tax thresholds. Taxes going up to their highest level in 70 years. They hate it, but that's the reality, and that's the truth of this Conservative government. On the public finances, borrowing has been revised up, with the Chancellor's measures in the budget adding £4 billion to borrowing, with debt as a share of GDP at its highest level since the 1960s. Borrowing to fund tax cuts. How irresponsible. On growth, after everything he announced was taken into account, growth forecasts were revised down from November. Growth figures would have been even worse were it not for higher predictions of net migration. They hate that too, but that's the truth. We are in a recession with the economy smaller than when the Prime Minister entered Downing Street, the biggest fall in living standards since records began, and real incomes below what they were at the last election. That's their record, and it's got the Prime Minister's name written all over it. Finally, Mr Speaker, disgracefully, there was no mention at all by the Chancellor of infected blood compensation or Horizon scandal redress. The slowness in righting these wrongs is raised here most weeks. The Business and Trade Select Committee's highly critical report out this morning calls for a legally binding timetable to deliver redress to sub-postmasters, taking it completely out of the hands of the Post Office. Does she agree? Given everything the leader has said on both these injustices, does she understand the anger that no new money has been allocated or a timetable given for these compensation schemes in yesterday's budget? Like with other measures, wasn't this omission just another short-term, cynical act, storing up problems for the next government to sort out? As ever, it's party before country, the final acts of a desperate, dying government.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, can I start by just noting that tomorrow is International Women's Day, and I would point out that on most Thursdays the primary players in this session are 3 women and sometimes a 4th in Speaker's chair. It is sometimes noted that in meetings women are often the last to speak, but I would argue that while that might be true, it is also equally the case that we are often the first to set the right tone and approach. Politics needs more of us, and I hope that the spirit of tomorrow will carry into this important political year. Turning to what the Honourable Lady has said about another female colleague of ours, she will no doubt be able to obtain details from the department in some of the questions that she has raised, but I would just remind the House, because what the Honourable Lady says is really probing the character of that Secretary of State. And I would remind this House that when the Honourable Lady was entitled to redundancy payments from being a Secretary of State, she did not, which was £16,000, she did not take that and handed it back to the department because it was the right thing to do. So I would just remind people of that, and I think that speaks volumes about the Honourable Lady's character and how much she values the fact that it is taxpayers' money that we are talking about. The Honourable Lady is channeling Elmer Fudd this morning, I see. Bugs may not have been in the Chancellor's hat, but support for businesses large and small was, help for households was, tax cuts for working people was, help for single-earner families was, and holding down the price of fuel at the pump through another fuel duty freeze was, and we will ensure that that benefit is handed on to the consumer via Pump Watch. I'm not going to take any lectures from a Labour Party on stewardship of public services and getting growth into our economy. No lectures on tax cutting from a Labour Party that still has 28 billion of unfunded spending commitments which can only be delivered through tax rises in its plans. It was the Labour Party that left office with £71 billion in a black hole in the defence budget and equipment programme. It was Labour that brought in the fuel duty escalator and is clobbering the motorist in Wales and in London. It's the Labour Party in Wales that have cut the NHS budget, not once but 3 times, in contrast to the increases we have brought in and the further £6 billion announced yesterday. And it's Labour's NHS budget cuts is one reason why a quarter of the population in Wales are on a waiting list. I'm not going to take any lectures from Labour on council tax, which rose by 104% under their administration, and again in Labour has nearly tripled since they've been in power. While we reform welfare to make work pay, double the personal allowance, cut national insurance and have protected jobs and livelihoods through furlough, Labour think it's a good use of taxpayers' money to give asylum seekers £1,600 a month. And I'm not going to take any lectures from the Labour Party on supporting those earning least from a party that brought in the 10p rate. The Honourable Lady's rhetoric on growth and modernising our nation does not match her party's agenda to unpick 40 years of trade union reform, tie business in red tape, or sit well with their voting record on minimum service levels for the British public. Nor am I going to take any lectures from a party that did the square root of diddly squat for victims of infected blood and the post office. And on that precise point, the Honourable Lady clearly hasn't read the Red Book. Just on the Horizon scandal on page 24, it commits us to paying full compensation. The estimates are in there, but it also says it will be increased if needed. This is a tough shift. Post-pandemic and mid-war, it is a tough shift, but thank God it is our shift. Our country has turned a corner, and we are going to get back to our inflation target sooner, as the new forecasts indicate. The plan is working, and we are going to stay that course, and we must. Otherwise, we are going to end up back where Labour brought us to. Compared to today, that's 1 million more workless households, 400,000 more children, and 200,000 more pensioners in absolute poverty, 4 million fewer in work, youth unemployment at 45%, literacy rates trailing rather than leading the world, and a third less spending on the NHS. No thank you, Shadow Leader. We're going to stick with the Prime Minister's plan. Further business will be announced.
James Daly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Mayor of Greater Manchester's vanity project, the 493 square mile clean air zone, has cost the taxpayer nearly £100 million. £100 million, supported by all Labour councillors in Greater Manchester and all Labour councillors in Bury. Would my right honourable friend make time for a debate to ensure that the voice of Conservative MPs who have campaigned against this ridiculous project can be heard again, and that this tax on hard-working people never sees the light of day?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I congratulate my honourable friend who has been leading the charge on this matter. Although there is a legal obligation to achieve compliance with emissions in the shortest possible time, we are reviewing that, and he also will know that Greater Manchester authorities are now changed their tune and are proposing an entirely different approach. I think that the campaign that he has run and the support that he has galvanised amongst his communities is the reason why that is being done, and I would congratulate him and encourage him to hold them to account.
SNP spokesperson Richard Thomson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following the frankly appalling behaviour of the leadership of the Labour Party in disrupting the SNP's Opposition Day debate on the 21st of February, don't like the truth, obviously. The leader told the House that she was sympathetic not only to the idea that the SNP should get another Opposition Day debate, but also that it should be taken from the allocation given to the Labour Party. I just wonder if she could update the House on how her thinking has developed on those points. Further to that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to address the issue of ministerial responsibility. So yesterday it was revealed that the Conservatives have a branch manager in Holyrood and also an energy minister in government, neither of whom appear to support this government's energy policy. So can the leader confirm, does the principle of collective responsibility in government also apply to junior ministers? And if so, what advice would you give to any ministers who's unable to support such a key plank of government policy, either publicly or in any budget votes ahead? Now, finally, Mr. Speaker, the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology has cost the taxpayer £15,000 after falsely accusing an academic of supporting Hamas. So could we have a debate on the limits of privilege, and specifically whether it's now the policy of the government that ministers can say whatever they like outside of Parliament and they will be financially indemnified from the consequences of doing so with the taxpayer, and whether she considers that it is now the job of the taxpayer to underwrite financially the Conservative Party's culture wars whenever they overstep the mark?
Leader.
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman for his questions? With regard to future opposition day debates, he knows that, and I've spoken to the leader of his party in Westminster regarding this, that we will give more time to the SNP. I think that they were badly treated and we will make that right. As I have explained, I also want to ensure that the Procedure Committee looks at what happened, because I do not want minority parties to receive more time on the floor of this House, but be in any doubt about how those debates will be conducted. I understand Mr Speaker has written to the Procedure Committee just to ask them to do a quick piece of work, and I will announce future Opposition Day debates for the SNP, and I hope that they will have confidence in what the Procedure Committee says in going forward. With regard to the issues he raises about particular measures in the budget, we have a balanced budget. That is why the Chancellor has made the decisions that he had. It is the government's budget and the government's plan, but I think it is rather cheeky of the honourable gentleman to seek to lecture us about use of public funds. I refer him to what I said about the Secretary of State for Science earlier on. The SNP are legendary in this respect. I had wrongly assumed actually that the appalling Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow had been laid on by the SNP, given its high cost, poor return, and the fact that the police were called. But, however, the presence of a bouncy castle put pay to that theory, given that bouncy castles have been banned by the SNP local authorities on health and safety grounds.
Bradley.
Mr Speaker, the lives of people across North Staffordshire have been blighted for far too long by the stench coming off Wally's Quarry landfill site in Newcastle-under-Lyme. There's delight that the Environment Agency has now issued a suspension notice. Will my right honourable friend join me in paying tribute to our honourable friend from Newcastle-under-Lyme for the work he has done on this incredibly important issue? And given, Mr Speaker, I know this is an issue that affects communities up and down the country, including yours, could the Leader of the House find time for a debate on the issue of landfill sites?
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for raising this very important point. It is unacceptable that residents in Newcastle-under-Lyme have for far too long had to put up with these appalling smells emanating from the particular quarry, and she is absolutely right to pay tribute to our honourable friend, the honourable member for that area. He has raised this many times in this House. He has been fighting for his constituents. I think he secured 2 Westminster Hall debates on this matter, and it is in very great part down to his efforts this is being resolved.
Backbench Chair Ian Mearns.
Very grateful, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, can I thank the Chair of the Procedure Committee for a very timely and affirmative response to our request to examine Westminster Hall standing orders. And I think, so to that end, Mr Speaker, I've actually written to the Leader of the House this morning, and hopefully we'll get a similarly timely and affirmative response from the Leader of the House on that particular instance. We would, of course, as a committee, welcome applications for debates from members across the House, and particularly for Westminster Hall, where we would probably be able to facilitate members with debates in the aftermath of the Easter recess. I think until Easter recess we're pretty well booked up, but that's as far as I need to go this morning, Mr Speaker.
Can I thank the honourable gentleman again for his very helpful advert for his committee. He knows that I very much agree with both his ask and the advice of the Procedure Committee, and so we will make this very good innovation the case very swiftly.
Theresa Villiers.
Can we have a debate on defending the environment and quality of life in the London suburbs? TfL and its development partner Ballymore want to build 25 tower blocks in Edgware Town Centre, including a 29-storey skyscraper. This is completely unacceptable and inappropriate. The Mayor of London must demand that TfL withdraws from this project, and we need a debate to make that point to him.
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for raising this? It's clear all communities want to ensure we have new homes being built. That is very important. But we've got to make sure that they are of the right type, that they're not affecting the character of a particular area, and the needs of local people and their views are taken into account. I know the Honourable Lady has been campaigning very hard against these matters, and that development really does need to be more gentle in the density that is being suggested for it to be in keeping with the local character. Can I congratulate her and the Save Edgware campaign, which is absolutely working flat out to ensure that the character of that community can remain, and I stand ready to assist her as she progresses that campaign.
Bill Ribeiro-Addy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week, the 9th of March, marks 10 years since the death of my dear friend Adjra Annan. She was just 28 years old. Adjra had sickle cell anemia, the UK's fastest growing genetic condition, but her untimely death was actually the direct result of serious failings in her care. Her experience and those of many others are outlined in the landmark Sickle Cell Society and APPG report, No One's Listening. However, since its publication in 2021, the government has failed to meaningfully engage with its findings and recommendations. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be right that 10 years after we lost Adjra, those with sickle cell and thalassemia continue to experience inequalities in treatment, substandard care and avoidable deaths. So I want to ask the Leader of the House when we can expect the government to finally listen and put forward policy that implements in full the recommendations of the No One's Listening report.
Well, can I start by thanking the Honourable Lady for remembering her friend Adjra and allowing us all to pause and pay tribute to her friend, and thank her also for raising the important work that the APPG did on this matter. The next health questions is not until late April, so I will write on the Honourable Lady's behalf to the Secretary of State for Health and ask her to respond directly to the Honourable Lady.
Liddell-Grainger.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering if we could have a debate in government time. It would be nice to actually talk about Mid-Devon. I've talked about it before, I know, but it's now got beyond a joke. There is no planning enforcement in Mid-Devon now. They've all gone. It is a free-for-all for developers. But second, much more importantly, they've gone to 3 weekly waste collection, which isn't a problem, except it's been totally taken over by a sort of draconian 1984 group of councillors who are determined to make the lives of the people of Tiverton and Mid-Devon impossible. The Chair of Scrutiny, who I think is now incompetent and lazy, is doing nothing to scrutinise any of this. We can't have local government being run by people who seem to be out to actually make the lives of local people miserable. Therefore, could we please have time to have a debate on local government in the future?
Well, it is sometimes said in response to questions that I refer the honourable member to the answer I gave some moments ago. I think the honourable gentleman could just stand up every week and refer me to the question that he asked last week. He is assiduous in his campaigning to highlight the failures of his local authority, and I expect to see him next week doing exactly the same thing.
Wera, Hobhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Passengers must feel confident when making train journeys. In the last 2 weeks alone, there were major cancellations on South Western trains and mass delays on Southern Rail and Thameslink. At the same time, rail fares rose by nearly 5% on Sunday. Everybody is paying more for less. Is it not high time we have a debate in government time on how we can support our crumbling rail infrastructure?
Yeah. Well, the Honourable Lady will know that the Department has made recent announcements on quite considerable uplifts to rail infrastructure. I know that there have been particular issues with South West trains with regard to the service that they're putting on and also the quality of their rolling stock. The next question session with the Secretary of State is not for some time, so I will, on the Honourable Lady's behalf, raise her concerns with him and ask that officials from his office get in touch.
Dr. Matthew.
Mr. Speaker, the RAF Museum in Colindale is one of London's premier tourist attractions, and many who visit do so by using the tube. However, TfL and the Mayor of London have decided that the works to upgrade Colindale tube station necessitate a 6-month closure. This would be dire not only for commuters but also for visitors to the RAF Museum. Can we have a minister come to the dispatch box to talk about what they can do to advise the assistance that can be provided to mitigate yet more unintended consequences from the disastrous mayor?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this very important point? It is an amazing museum. I was recently there at the RAF Gallantry Awards dinner, and I think that at most times this would be a very unfortunate thing to be happening to one of our most impressive national museums. But I think in this year there are particular anniversaries that are coming up which mean that people will want to visit that and particularly look at reconnaissance aircraft and so forth that are there. He will know that this is a matter that is devolved to the Mayor of London, but I know that he has done a service by getting concerns of many people on record today, and I shall also make sure that the relevant departments has also heard his concerns to see what pressure can be brought to bear on Transport for London and the Mayor of London.
Rushanara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The budget means net tax cuts of £9 billion taking effect in an election year, but this is dwarfed by £27 billion of tax increases that have taken effect last year and £19 billion tax rises which will come into effect after the general election because of the actions of her party. The Chancellor has given with one hand, taken with the other. Does the Leader of the House think her party is fooling anyone?
Well, she will know, and I would encourage her to reread the Chancellor's speech yesterday as to what progress we are making, both in terms of growth, inward investment into this country. This year, the Investment Summit had a record amount of money being put into this nation, over £30 billion just garnered in that particular week. And she will know that we had revised forecasts yesterday in terms of us returning to our target for inflation. These are tough times, but the plan is working, and we are determined to see hard-working families through it.
Blackman.
Speaker, before the pandemic, TfL's finances were in a complete mess because the Labour Mayor of London refused to raise fares in line with inflation. Now, after receiving the final instalment of the £6.2 billion of coverage for under COVID from the government, he freezes fares again, refuses to pay the police the money they need to reform and keep London safe, and raises the council tax precept by 8.7%. So could my right honourable friend arrange for time for a debate so that we can point out the errors of the London Mayor and put us on the course for proper governance in London?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for again raising the appalling maladministration of the Mayor of London. Londoners are paying more to prop up the Mayor's budget, not just in the increased headline rates, but also in a whole series of stealth taxes and fines that are being levied. But even the most fundamental services, being the police, for example, in London, have an enormous black hole in their budgets. It's an absolute scandal, and I hope that Londoners will rectify that situation in the coming months.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The sorry saga of Tees Works continues, including the mysterious £20 million paid out to the joint venture partners over rubble, and putting to one side the Levelling Up Secretary's bizarre hailing of Lord Ouchins as Teesside's best champion since Sunderland won the FA Cup in 1973. Whilst she might want to send a colleague a map of the North East, could she prevail upon him to come to the House and make a statement and explain how his comment that with £560 million of public money so far invested, providing eye-watering incomes for the joint venture partners without putting in any money of their own, is in any way consistent with his claim that the remediation of the site was achieved by bringing in private investment. There hasn't been any such private investment. The taxpayer has paid for the lot. So could the leader please ask the Secretary of State to come to the House and explain himself?
Well, I would dispute what the honourable gentleman says, and I think it goes to the heart of his prejudices against private sector involvement. I would say that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The employment rate in Teesside is now 3% over the national average, and I'm sorry the honourable gentleman doesn't welcome that success. We do, and we want it to continue.
Andrew Rossell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Leader of the House will be fully aware that I welcome the Prime Minister's remarks outside number 10 Downing Street last week when he said that it's not enough to live side by side. We must live together, united by a shared commitment to this country. He's right. Immigration is only successful when integration is successful. So, in light of that, will the Leader of the House agree to a debate on the floor of the House concerning a new proactive integration strategy, ensuring that those who come to Britain are encouraged to learn English, become part of UK communities and embrace British values? Does she agree that we need a coherent UK integration policy?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this very important point. I know that the Home Office have done work in this area, and he will know that there have been previous initiatives by other departments, such as the Department for Levelling Up, in terms of providing language classes and so forth. I think also the Home Office have been focused on those that have leave to remain here and choose to make their home here, but are not citizens of this country, and looking at actually whether we need a more robust and more proactive stance towards citizenship and all the things that it brings and all the things that it means to us.
Okay.
Despite my Airdrie and Shotts constituent John being born in North Lanarkshire and living in Scotland his whole life, he had to apply to become a British citizen, pledge his allegiance to the King and pay £260 for the process of applying for a passport because he doesn't have access to his mother's birth certificate. Will the Leader of the House make way in government time for MPs to raise and debate various passport issues? Can she outline if she's aware of any recourse for my constituent to be reimbursed?
Well, I would be very happy to facilitate for the Honourable Lady a meeting between Home Office officials and her office, or indeed herself, to talk about this case in particular, and also anything that the department can learn from John's experiences of going through this process. He will know that we have clear line of sight reporting on the costs that are charged for particular things, but if there has been some injustice in this respect, I'm sure that meeting will help rectify the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week saw the launch of the independent report that I, together with the DWP and the leading research charity Autistica, prepared as a result of a 10-month review into autism and employment. There is still a huge gap in terms of the number of people in work. Under 3 in 10 adults who are autistic are working. That is way below the disability average. I'm grateful to the Backbench Business Committee for allocating time for a debate here in the Chamber on the report and its findings in April. Will my right honourable friend use her good offices to ensure that that time is preserved as much as possible, and that colleagues from across the House can debate the important recommendations raised in my report?
Well, can I first of all thank my right honourable friend for all the work that he has done on this particular report, but on many other areas that are of deep concern to people with autism and their families. This is a landmark report. It is wonderful to hear that it is being debated on the floor of the House. I will ensure that that time is protected and that nothing happens to it. And I would also congratulate my colleagues at the Department for Work and Pensions for the work that they have done and the proactive way they have commissioned these findings.
Dan Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, after the budget, Kate Burt, the Chief Executive of the Haemophilia Society, said this: "Today, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt could have reassured those infected and affected by contaminated blood products that resources for long overdue compensation would be made available. Instead, like so many chancellors before him, he ignored this issue. deepening the anxiety, anger and frustration caused by his government's failure to take responsibility for this long-running injustice. We deplore this cowardly and morally bankrupt attempt to kick the payment of compensation beyond the next general election. I know the leader cares very deeply about this issue, and she will be as disappointed as I am about the failure to put anything into the budget. Can we please now have a statement from the Paymaster General as to exactly what he is doing? He's not talking to those infected or affected. He's not taking soundings from any of the campaign groups. He's appointing people and we're not allowed to know their names to advise him. It's time for a statement. It's time to know what the government is actually doing.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Lady again for raising this important point, and I am very happy to set the record straight on this. It is not the intention to kick the can down the road on this. The Paymaster General and I have a weekly update on this. He is working very hard. I know the Honourable Lady will appreciate that this is, throughout all of this process, this is the hardest bit to actually come up with the scheme in short order and ensure that it is going to deliver for those infected and affected by this matter. I think that the House will not have to wait long before it is updated by the Paymaster General, and I already know that he is planning a tour across the UK to meet with particular groups, and I hope that he will be able to update the Honourable Lady on that very swiftly. This is a moral issue. We have taken it seriously. That is why we did the inquiry. That is why we did the compensation review. And I know that the Paymaster General will have to balance the issues that the Honourable Lady raises against being swift on this matter. He feels it very deeply, and he will deliver for this House and all of those victims.
Sir Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow is International Women's Day, and today marks 5 months since the barbaric Hamas attack on Israel. Of the 134 hostages still cruelly held by Hamas, 19 are women, and of those, 5 are teenage girls. Now, will my right honourable friend join me in marking International Women's Day by supporting the campaign that's called #BringBackOurGirls? And will she take this opportunity to send a message to their families who are enduring unimaginable pain and the living nightmare of young women in the hands of vicious, rapist terrorists?
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for affording the whole House the opportunity to send a message to the families of all the hostage families that they are still very much in our thoughts. Of those women and girls still kept hostage, the youngest is 19, the oldest is 70, and we can only imagine the horrors that they are facing. This week the UN published their report on the sexual violence suffered by Israeli women and girls on the 7th of October. They looked at over 5,000 photographs and over 50 hours of footage of those attacks, and they concluded that there was evidence at the Nova Music Festival of rape, gang rape and murder. It is the most appalling situation. I'm glad that the UN now have that evidence on record and have produced that report. We cannot let these poor women and girls suffer what they must be suffering a moment longer. We must bring them home, and I'm sure that is the sentiments of everyone in this House.
Ashley Dalton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Constituents in West Lancashire have this week been deeply concerned about the threatened closure of our Daly service. Yesterday I learned that unlike Conservative-led Lancashire County Council, Labour-led West Lancashire Borough Council has managed to find some additional funds for this year, and Daly has announced that it will be able to continue for the following financial year. Could we please have a debate about the impact of over a decade of cuts to local government on the valuable community and voluntary sector that all our constituents rely upon?
Well, the voluntary and community sector is thriving. 13 million Brits volunteer every single month. And the services that the Honourable Lady talks about are incredibly important. Different councils will be doing different things. Some have dial-a-ride services, others have tokens for taxis, depending on whether they are urban or rural. This is incredibly important, and she will know that we have, at the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, spent an enormous amount of focus in supporting the community and voluntary sector through new initiatives like the National Citizenship Programme. But I will make sure that the relevant department has heard her concerns.
Paul Howell.
Mr Speaker, following on to the question from the member for Kingston-upon-Hull North, really, my Sedgefield constituent Dave Farry from Furry Hill is one of many that's been impacted by the infected blood scandal. I understand that we're nearing the final compensation settlement for victims of this appalling scandal. Could the leader please advise me on how people are best able to engage with ministers on this subject?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this matter on behalf of his constituents. As I outlined earlier, the Paymaster General is very keen not just to bring forward proposals in swift order, but also to meet directly with those infected and affected by this, to hear their views and to get feedback on the scheme and ensure that it is going to meet with their approval. The latest information I have is that there will be 25 meetings round the country, and I know that the Paymaster General feels very strongly that that is the right thing to do, and I will make sure that he has heard the Honourable Gentleman's interest on behalf of his constituent and that he is updated as soon as those dates and venues are able to be announced.
Abdul Khan.
Mr Speaker, as you know, Manchester has a proud history of welcoming those seeking sanctuary, but the Home Office is failing to provide support for the move-on process for those who have been recently granted asylum. Since April 2023, there has been a 575% increase on the number of people who have presented to Manchester City Council as homeless because the Home Office has evicted them. The government expects local authorities and the voluntary sector to fill the gap they are leaving, but without providing the resources to do so. Councillor Craig, leader of Manchester City Council, has written to the Secretary of State to raise this. So can we have an urgent debate in government time on support offered to newly recognised refugees?
Well, I would be very happy to raise this matter with the Home Office and ask for a meeting on behalf of the Honourable Gentleman. The local authorities do have a great deal of flexibility in terms of who they take and under what circumstances they take them, and indeed where they actually provide accommodation. So I'm not sure quite what the underlying issue is with the Honourable Gentleman, but I would be very happy to facilitate him discussing this with the Home Office.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Along with my honourable friends from Gainsborough and Grimsby, we have a long-running campaign to restore the direct train service between Cleethorpes and King's Cross, which would serve our three constituencies. We know that the Department of Transport have approved this. The Budget Red Book has a couple of sections that could include that service. Could the Leader of the House arrange for the Rail Minister to come and make a statement to clarify whether or not the Cleethorpes service is included?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for all the work that he has done on this very important service to his constituents, which is going to bring massive benefits to the area. I can absolutely confirm that we are committed to ensuring that this service is stood up. I understand that work is still required to assess what infrastructure changes are needed at the stations that are going to be involved, and that further operational readiness activities need to take place before those direct services can be introduced. But I will ensure that the Rail Minister has heard what he has said today and will contact the Honourable Gentleman to give him assurances.
Stephen McKenna.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's been reported that taxpayers have had to pick up the bill of £15,000 due to the actions of the member for Chippenham, who's rapidly becoming known as the member for chipping in. Could the Leader of the House confirm that amount of £15,000? And could she also say whether she thinks it's fair that taxpayers should be footing the bill for the disgracefully bad judgment and behaviour of her colleague?
Well, the honourable gentleman is an experienced parliamentarian, and he will know that each department will have an officer, the Perm Secretary, and a monitoring officer for the department that ensures that any such payments are correct and proper and justified. There is also the Propriety and Ethics team at the Cabinet Office which oversees such things. So I'm pretty confident, having not been directly involved with this myself, that what has happened is perfectly correct and has been done. What the honourable gentleman is getting at is it right? And I would just again point the honourable gentleman to what that particular Secretary of State has done herself in other circumstances. She very much understands that it is taxpayers' money, and she has taken action in the past to turn down things that she was entitled to because she felt it was morally wrong to take them.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I hope the Right Honourable lady knows that I am not a fan of the go for the player rather than the ball type of politics, which is so popular with so many in this place. But following so many comments today, I have to say that I think as public servants, we owe the public the right to question whatever we do. And I fully respect what the Right Honourable lady has said about the Right Honourable member for Chippenham turning down payments such as her redundancy after 2 days as Education Secretary. However, the question is not going to go away until the public have the right to question. There is also the issue, I think, of whether the ministerial code was breached in any of what has happened. The Prime Minister promised us a government of transparency. So would she please take back to him the suggestion that there should be a statement to the House to clarify the situation, if nothing else?
Well, I completely understand the legitimate issues that the Honourable Lady is raising. She has a reputation of playing the ball and not the man or woman, and I completely take her question in the spirit that I think it is intended. What I can say to her is that from what I know of the situation, and because of the oversight that is given to these matters, that this has been completely in line with the rules, and I would again refer her to what I have said about the character of the individual.
Martin Cordova.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Listening to the Chancellor's budget this week, you'd think that everything is rosy despite our country being in a recession. However, Mr Speaker, the narrative flies in the face of the daily reality of workers and businesses. So does the Leader of the House accept that this government can't escape from their dismal economic record of the last 14 years?
Well, I would ask the Honourable Lady to reflect how she thinks the hard-working people of this country will cope with having to plug a £28 billion hole in Labour's spending plans, which could only be raised, if they're sticking to their fiscal rules, by raising taxes.
Patricia Gibson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Scotland's baby box is delivered to every baby born in Scotland, packed full of baby essentials from birth to 6 months, helping parents to give their child a positive start in life. Scotland also has the largest free book giveaway for children of any nation on earth through the book gifting programme, giving every child free 4 packs of books between birth and primary 1, as well as a Scottish Child payment of £25 per week per child for our poorest families. None of these things are available anywhere else in the United Kingdom. Will the Leader of the House make a statement setting out her views on the importance of ensuring that every child has the best start in life, recognising that it is government's job to address inequalities as much as it can with the powers it has to build a more cohesive and fairer society?
Well, I've no quibble with any of the issues the Honourable Lady raises, but I would also say it's the duty of governments to ensure that people have public services that they can rely on, that the police can attend burglaries and other such things, that people can have access to the healthcare that they need, and that also that their ambitions with regard to the growth of the economy in their local communities are also supported. And unfortunately, her government in Scotland is not doing those things.
Andrew Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Michelle is a cancer survivor who has campaigned for years on the issue of access to NHS dentistry for cancer patients. I have made frequent attempts to secure a debate on this matter and will continue to do so. But I wondered if the Leader of the House would allocate some government time to discuss this important issue, given the fact that chemotherapy can have a traumatic impact on one's dental health and the resulting impacts that this has in future life for those who are able to survive cancer is incredibly significant.
Well, I know that my right honourable friend, the Minister with responsibility for dentistry, and who has brought forward a new dental plan, an uplift, but also new things for the NHS in England, such as mobile dentistry vans. She is very focused particularly on those people who are perhaps disproportionately affected because of other issues. That includes cancer patients, it includes looked after children, it includes women who were pregnant during the pandemic and couldn't access free dental care during those particular times. She is very focused on that. We do have some new opportunities with this new dental plan and the changes to actually how payments are going to be made to ensure that everyone in our nation is dentally fit. I think a debate on that matter would be very welcome, and I know the honourable gentleman knows how to apply for one.
Andrew Bridget.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public petition 648609 called for a debate on ending the UK's membership of the World Health Organisation. It was refused by the Petitions Committee despite well exceeding the 100,000 threshold of public support. So can we please have a statement on why this House is determined to give away sovereign powers to an unelected, unaccountable, non-tax-paying, diplomatically immune from prosecution organisation whose current Director General was only appointed through an unholy alliance of Bill Gates and the Chinese Communist Party. And perhaps the Leader of the House would say why the WHO, the World Health Organization, has joined excess deaths and vaccine harms as things we just can't talk about in this House.
Well, I think there is enough to worry about and focus on and debate about health-related issues and all sorts of other issues without inventing crises and drama where there is none. The honourable gentleman has already acknowledged in his question that the petition he refers to is a matter for the Petitions Committee. That is a committee of this House. I am not responsible for the decisions it takes. I will facilitate and help the honourable gentleman secure debates, raise questions and anything else that he wants to do on any topic that he wishes to campaign on. And he will know, because he has secured debates in this place, and indeed they have been well attended debates, that this House is very open to discussing all sorts of issues, including the World Health Organization, including the treaty that I know the honourable gentleman is concerned about. So let's just focus on the real issues and the substance and matters at hand, and not pretend that this House or anyone in it or any of its committees has any other hidden agenda, because the honourable gentleman knows that is not true.
Barry Shearman.
Deputy Speaker, does the Leader of the House agree with me that this is probably the most perilous time in the world, that certainly in my long time in this House of Commons? Does she agree with me also that this House needs to be up to date on what's happening in the world? And could I share with her the fact that last week I had to watch the Foreign Secretary on television in the House of Lords to be informed about what our foreign policy was and what he was doing. Now, I understand that there was no one seen fit to be Foreign Secretary on those benches, and they had to go to the House of Lords. But can we have more regular debates and statements? Because this isn't right in this elected House of Commons to have no Secretary of State that comes here and answers in these perilous times.
Well, first of all, I would say to the honourable gentleman, I would implore on him to recognise the merits of the Minister for the Foreign Office, who has been at this dispatch box an enormous number of times, and also to acknowledge that the Foreign Secretary, who obviously does sit in the House of Lords, has made himself available to honourable members on a whole raft of issues, and in particular those honourable members who have been affected by what is going on in Israel and Gaza. He will know that the Procedure Committee has made further recommendations on how this House can scrutinise the Foreign Secretary, and the House of Lords will shortly, I'm sure, take a decision on their recommendations.
Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Despite short-term tax cuts yesterday, families across the country know that they are worse off than they have been for 14 years. That they're worse off than they were 14 years ago. So why won't the Leader of the House urge the Prime Minister to call an election and let the British people give their views on this government?
Yeah. Well, what the Honourable Lady says, I'm afraid, is not the case. We have got an enormous number of people into work, and the best way for people to lift themselves out of poverty is through work. 2 million of that 4 million are women. 1 million of them are disabled people who would have not had the dignity of a pay packet unless we had brought through welfare reforms that made work pay and supported people in work. We have an enormous childcare package which under the previous Labour administration they went nowhere near, and we know that those people living in absolute poverty has reduced pensioners by 200,000, children by 400,000. On any measure, the country is doing better. It has more opportunities in the future because of the things that we have been doing in education. We are soaring up the international literacy tables. We have reformed post-16 education to enable people to get degrees without getting into massive amounts of debt, which is what happened under the Honourable Lady's party. What she says is not true, and that's why we need to stay the course and stick with this government.
Kevin Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week I raised Sue Sparks, my constituent whose husband died as a result of the infected blood scandal. Now, I know the Leader of the House, because she referred to it earlier, has got a copy of the Red Book with her. Could she point to the line in the Red Book where the Chancellor has set aside any resource to deal with the compensation that she knows and he knows will have to be paid as a result of the blood-infected scandal? Isn't that a moral obligation on the Chancellor, to this House, to my constituent and to all those affected by this scandal?
The honourable gentleman will know that provision has been made for this. The final scheme is being worked on, and I can understand why people want to raise this issue. It's a moral issue, and it stirs very understandable passions. But I would just caution honourable members to recognise that, because I do think that honourable members know that the scheme is about to be brought forward. I have already announced today that the Paymaster General will be going around the country to talk to people directly about that and the plans that he is bringing forward. I care passionately about this issue, as I did when I gave evidence to the inquiry, and I do not want those who are victims of this appalling scandal to worry about what is going to happen. I want us to be able to reassure them, and so I hope I will be able to continue to do that every week, and I would ask honourable members who quite rightly want to know the detail of the scheme to just reflect that in the questions that they ask both myself and the Paymaster General.
Jim McMahon.
Thank you. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating Oldham Athletic Football Club owner Frank Rothwell on his sterling achievement in rowing the 3,000 miles across the Atlantic in aid of Alzheimer's Research UK in his 70s for the second time? He managed to raise over £350,000 for that charity, adding to the £1 million he's already fundraised previously on the first row. But will she also allocate time in government time to debate the very real issue of the near million people who are affected by Alzheimer's in the UK and the funding and early diagnosis in support of that?
Well, as the honourable gentleman asked that question and revealed the full extent of his constituents' incredible achievements, there was an audible gasp, and I'm sure that as a consequence the whole House will want to join the honourable gentleman congratulating him on these amazing achievements. I'm very close to HMS Audacious, which is the Royal Navy's rowing team, which regularly rows the Atlantic. So I'm very familiar with the incredible ordeal that is. So doing it at 70 years old is utterly remarkable. And I congratulate him very deeply and thank the honourable gentleman for getting his concerns also raised about provision and care for those suffering from Alzheimer's. I shall make sure that the Health Secretary has heard what he said.
Kirsten Oswald.
Deputy Speaker, I welcomed the Chancellor's announcement that he would be taxing vaping products, but I wonder why on earth it has to be left until 2026. I think it's very disappointing that in the same week that Laura Young, also known as Less Waste Laura, was named as Scottish Influencer of the Year for her fantastic environmental campaigning, including on banning disposable vapes, that this important tax measure has been so resoundingly kicked into the long grass. Now, I'm sure the House would want to join me in congratulating Laura, but can we also have a debate in government time on the imperative to move with more speed on taxing vapes, and perhaps we can make some time too to discuss the wholly unacceptable practice of vaping companies sponsoring sports strips?
Well, I thank the honourable lady for getting her concerns on record. I will raise the matter with both the Treasury but also the Health Secretary, but she will know that we are also hoping very shortly to bring forward legislation where which I'm sure, given what the honourable lady has said, that she would be happy to support.
Alex Cunningham.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend, the member from Middlesbrough, referred earlier to the gaffe by the Levelling Up Secretary. He demonstrated his ignorance whilst on a visit to Teesside, referring to the heroes of Sunderland who won the FA Cup in 1973, when perhaps he should have been praising the 2004 League Cup winners, Middlesbrough. Instead of ignoring the matter, could she arrange a humanities lesson for the Minister so he can better understand the history and geography of the North East?
Very good. I take my responsibilities to all members of this House very seriously. I will immediately after this session go and raise with the Secretary of State and his special advisers and his officials what the honourable gentleman has said. And I think he will take from that, given all of the other issues the honourable gentleman might have raised in his question to me this morning, that he thinks the government is doing a very good job.
Justin Madders.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can we have a debate, please, on personal responsibility? If I say or tweet something that is defamatory, I would expect to be responsible for the consequences of that, not the taxpayer. And I think that's what the public would expect as well. Now, the Leader's response to earlier questions suggested that somehow the Honourable Member for Chippenham had credit in the bank because she didn't take the redundancy payment that was offered to her, or that these payments are within the rules. If that is the case, then the rules are wrong, and that's why we need a debate.
Well, the honourable gentleman has hit on it. If the rules have been followed, if we're not questioning the character of the individuals, it must be the rules that are wrong. I will raise this with the Department and Permanent Secretary, but I can again reassure this House that these matters have considerable oversight, both from the monitoring officers in the departments, but also from the Propriety and Ethics team.
Wakefield.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This week, the 4th of March, marks the one-year anniversary of Anu Abraham's death. Anu was a young man with a bright future, and he should still be here. And after speaking to his family and seeing photos, he was one of the kindest individuals anyone would know, with a smile that would light up the room. Anu tragically took his own life following bullying whilst working as a trainee police officer, working for West Yorkshire Police. So can we have a debate in government time on police recruitment and the training of trainee police officers and their support packages, because lessons must be learnt, changes must be enacted and voices must be heard.
Well, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for allowing us to get on record and remember Anu, clearly somebody that wanted to step up and serve in public service and serve his community, and his suicide is an absolute tragedy. I know that the police services in general, but in particular also that those responsible for training and ensuring that the right safeguarding and support is there for those particularly going through training, review these matters. And I know that the Home Secretary takes these matters very seriously, but I will say to the Home Secretary that the Honourable Gentleman has raised this particular matter today and ask that he is updated on progress to ensuring that this tragedy never happens again.
Gerald Jones.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've been trying to amend the Road Traffic Act 1988 following the tragic loss of a one-year-old child, Pearl Black, from Merthyr Tydfil. Working with Pearl's parents, we're seeking this amendment to close a loophole that caused them huge distress. In November, the Prime Minister gave a commitment at PMQs to facilitate a meeting with the relevant minister, possibly from Transport or Justice, with Pearl's parents. Unfortunately, despite requests, that meeting still hasn't taken place. So could I ask the Leader of the House, please, to offer her assistance in securing a debate on how we can deliver the change and, crucially, how we can facilitate a meeting with Pearl's parents? Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear that that meeting hasn't happened, and I'm sure that transport ministers would want to facilitate that. So following this session, I will make sure that they have heard what the Honourable Gentleman has said and see whether we can rectify that.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Of course, tomorrow is International Women's Day, and it saddens me greatly that Warwickshire should have the worst conviction record for rape and serious sexual offences. Philip Seckham, our Police Crime Commissioner, was one of the few to cut domestic abuse units and close the RASO in Warwickshire. So can we have a debate in government time on the accountability and scrutiny of police crime commissioners?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman raises some very serious matters, and I would refer him to in particular what the Prime Minister said at Prime Minister's Questions this week with regard to the progress that has been made on supporting victims coming forward of these heinous crimes, but also the increased conviction rate that we want to see, particularly for rape and sexual assault. I think a debate on these matters would be excellent, because there is considerable variation between areas and what police crime commissioners are doing, and I would welcome that scrutiny.
Alistair Trevor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On Monday, I was out in Mepershall, where residents are fed up with the condition of the main road through the village. But like many villages, they've been told really needed roadworks can't take place until developments are finished. As reasonable as this may sound, as developments drag on and on and on, and with no end to future developments in sight, surely enough has to be enough. Could the relevant minister issue a statement about whether more guidance might be needed about the length of time it's reasonable for private developments to delay clearly needed public roadworks?
Well, I will certainly make sure that the relevant departments have heard the Honourable Gentleman's concerns today. He will know also that local authorities have been given a quite sizable uplift in road maintenance, particularly looking at things like potholes or resurfacing. On the 15th of this month, local authorities have to publish what they have done with that money, and I would encourage the Honourable Gentleman to scrutinise whether that money has been spent and spent on the right things.
Richard Ford.
Deputy Speaker, at the end of January, the government launched the Pharmacy First scheme, which encourages patients to consult pharmacists rather than GPs, or at least taking pressure off GPs. And while this is good in theory, the reality is that the community pharmacy workforce is on its knees, with levels of trained support staff having been cut by 20%. We're seeing the closure of pharmacies in rural and coastal towns like Axminster and Sidmouth, with a constituent telling me yesterday that queues at the pharmacy in Axminster are out the door. Will the government please make time for a debate on recognising the value of community pharmacies?
The government does recognise the value of community pharmacies. There could be no Prime Minister that is better placed to recognise the importance of pharmacy, and I think that is why Not only have we enabled the Pharmacy First service to be stood up, we've been doing this for a number of years. It is now available to all members of the public, but there were trailblazer programmes prior to that for people who were on benefits. 98% of pharmacies now are making use of this, and it also enables them to derive an income from it. I think it is progress. It is to be supported and welcomed, and I hope the honourable gentleman will promote it in his constituency.
I thank the Leader of the House for the business questions. Point of order, Lillian Greenwood.
Thank you.